Good evening and welcome to the August 20th, 2024 meeting of the City of Beekman Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Jordan Haug and I'm the chairman of this board. Joining us tonight are my fellow board members, our attorney, our zoning board secretary, and the building inspector. Thank you all for being here today. The application materials that will be discussed tonight, including any proposed resolutions and other documents, are available on the city's website. Also on the city's website is a link to the rules and procedures of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I just want to take a minute to explain the board's procedures. We'll hear each application on the order it's noticed on the agenda. Tonight we have a non-public hearing for agenda item number 1, which is an extension request from a previously submitted variance. The other agenda items, number 2 and 3, will both have public hearings tonight. The first we'll hear from the applicant. They'll present their plans, make their arguments for the reasons why they would like to get a variance or multiple variances, and then we'll open the comments up to the public. Please step up to the podium. When you come up to the podium, please clearly state your name and your address for the record. All comments should be directed towards the zoning board, not the applicant or city staff. And then something to keep in mind, the factors that we use to determine the variances. So we are bound by law to consider certain things and not consider anything else. And I will just read those for the type of variances that we are looking at tonight, which are area variances. There's a 5-factor test. So these are the things that we can consider and must consider when weighing and balancing whether or not we should grant a variance. Will an undesirable change be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties be created by the granting of the area variance? Will the proposed action compromise the character of the neighborhood? Can the benefit be sought by the applicant achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance? Is the area variance substantial? Is the alleged difficulty self-created? And then finally, we have to ask, is this the minimum variance required to achieve the goal? We are a 5-person board. All 5 people are present on the board today. You must have, in order to get a variance passed, you must have 3. The majority of the board, 3 of 5. All right. With that being said, did everyone on the board have the opportunity to review the minutes for the July meeting? Yes. Excellent. Any comments, edits needed? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept the minutes for the July 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Motion by Montos. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Stowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. And so can I have a motion to open the meeting on agenda item number 1, which is not a public hearing?
So moved.
Motion by Judy. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Elaine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So, George, do you want to just introduce this item?
All right. So as a brief introduction, this application originally came before us back in October. Variances were granted as referenced by the applicant on an October 28th resolution. As part of every variance that's granted, the applicant or the recipient of the variance has the opportunity to extend for an additional 6 months, provided that the circumstances under which the variance were granted have not substantially changed, materially changed since then. There was some confusion here in terms of when the 6 months, or not when the 6 months, but rather what submission counted, I guess, for a building permit submission, and Bruce could speak better to that, but I believe there was confusion based on a bona fide application to the building department sometime back in February. The bona fide application standard is for special use permits, which basically in the city says if you have a bona fide application submitted to the building department, that's enough. Whereas here, the language is not a bona fide application, so there was just some confusion on that. What happened was then technically this had expired, but they are seeking a retroactive extension, 6-month extension of the variance granted because of this confusion. Now, the applicant, I believe, is here via Zoom that could speak more to that, and I think Bruce is also familiar with what exactly happened, but that's a general rundown. Any extension today, 6-month extension, would be back to when, would be as of, effective of the date that the 6 months would have been up. So it's not an extension of 6 months from today, it's from, I believe, April, yes, April 28th. So, which would put them to have 2 more months approximately until, until they would need potential subsequent 6-month extension.
Sorry, excuse me, she's having a hard time hearing
Was she able
Oh.
to hear Jordan at the beginning?
us. She says it was choppy, now she says she can't hear anything.
Well,
Can you hear us now?
so, well, we're going to have a discussion, and if she can't hear, we'll just have to adjourn it, I guess. But George, just to clarify, our standard, I believe, and I just want to clarify and just get a clean record, is a building permit must be issued within 6 months. Is that correct?
So our resolutions all say that, give me a second. As one of the conditions of approval, it is that the building permit, the variance is void if the applicant fails to obtain a building permit within 6 months from the date of the resolution. Number 2, commence construction within 6 months following the issuance of that building permit. And number 3, or complete construction and obtain a certificate of occupancy within 24 months of that building permit. So
Okay.
the threshold thing is the 6 months to obtain a building permit.
So Bruce, what is the average, or what is the minimum, what is the average, and what is the maximum amount of time your office needs to process a building permit application up from receipt to the granting of a permit?
So if the building permit is brought into the office complete with all the required information on the plan, usually the turnaround is about 2 to 3 weeks.
I don't think your mic is on.
Well, my mic, it's on. No? Green light's on.
Yeah, but I
Can't hear it?
It
Maybe-
doesn't sound. it doesn't
Maybe
sound
talk a little
amplified.
closer.
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so again, if they bring in a complete application with all the required information I need, it would be processed within 2 to 3 weeks. If for some reason it's reviewed and then we're looking for information, it's on the applicant to provide us all the updated information, and then we would go ahead and issue the permit after we've gotten the revisions.
And what happened in this case?
In this case, I didn't review the plans. Corey, who works in the office, he did the review on the plans, sent a letter looking for revisions, and they are still working on completing those revisions at this point. So there was some changes, the original plan, there was some changes on the interior, and I think we're waiting for the final set back from the architect, because the plans are required to have the stamp and seal of a design professional in order for us to issue it.
And do you know when the first submission was made?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember. It was definitely before the 6-month window.
Okay. And George, your understanding of the applicant was that was their...
Yeah, my understanding in speaking with the applicant's architect via email was, I didn't speak directly, Bruce asked me the question, was they were functioning on the idea that a bona fide application is enough to reach that threshold, I guess, which was in advance of the 6 months, as I recall as well. The only thing is, like I said, it's for special use permits that a bona fide application. Now, my understanding for this, again, and Bruce, please correct me if I'm wrong, the holdup here was mainly due for interior issues, right? Interior drawings and construction?
Yes, correct.
Not related to the variance, in the realm of the variance is the rear yard and side yard setback. So
Right.
it's not like there was a holdup because of something related to the variance that was granted. It was related to interior work on the property.
And Bruce, would you say it's abnormal for, I guess, an application that it cannot be immediately processed? So one like this where there's back and forth for the request of additional materials or whatever the requests are to take 4 months?
This is abnormal, yes. Usually when we put together a review letter, send it off to the owner or the design professional that's doing the work, usually they'll come back within, 2 to 3 weeks with revised plans, at the most. Sometimes they usually turn it around within a week because the changes are so minimal, it's just additional notes that maybe needed to be put on the plan.
So would you say, in your opinion, the reason for the delay was because there were substantial notes or because of lack of response from?
It's probably lack of response.
Okay.
Were there changes to the dimensions?
Setbacks.
So the overall building itself, there was no change dimensionally. It was, the changes were all inside the dwelling itself. So it was the rearrangement of rooms and, I think, access to get, from the original house into the new addition.
She doesn't hear anything? She doesn't hear anything?
But the actual footprint of the building, it stayed the same. Those dimensions are supposed to be the same on the final revision. Again, we didn't receive the final plan yet. So once they're brought in, they will be confirmed against what the variance was issued. And as long as everything matches up, we'll let it go forward. If for some reason they come back and they make the addition bigger in one direction or the other, we would probably bring it back to the table here for the board to act on it again.
But it wasn't, it was all interior?
It was all interior.
Does the public have a right to have anything to say about, or the town?
It wouldn't
To have
change
anything to say about the interior? I wouldn't think so.
No, it wouldn't change anything on the exterior of the building. The
Right.
setbacks are still going to be the same as what were proposed and what were approved.
Yeah, so obviously, as just to be clear for the public as well, the variances were for the setbacks, so not for the interior work. So in the realm of the extension of the variance, we only look at, or the board should only look at and consider the actual variance itself that was granted. So the interior work is available in the building department, but has no bearing on the variance or the extension being sought at this time.
Just a question to satisfy my own curiosity. What's the difference between somebody submitting an application and a bona fide application?
That's for special use permit standards. What that comes into, I don't know who is the arbiter of what's a bona fide. I would imagine that's what attorneys always say, a good faith application. But again, that's for special use permit standards. So
It wouldn't apply here?
no, it does not apply here. And that was the confusion at first. It was, from what I recall, the belief that, we submitted the bona fide because we are trying to get this done. There's just some revisions going on, so we're good on time for the variance. But the confusion was that it's not a bona fide, it's you have to obtain the building permit within those 6 months. So
Or apply.
That's what it
obtain,
Obtain?
yeah. That's what the resolution says. It says obtain a building, yes, yes. So it was a confusion in that respect. But again, when it comes to extension requests, the standard is if there's been substantial changes under which the variance was granted at that time. Material changes in like site, all of a sudden now the house is completely different and the variance has changed a little bit, right? Generally speaking, if the status quo is the same with regard to the realm of the variance, the law is basically that extension requests should also remain status quo, and if they had the time, they should continue to have the time provided that there hasn't been this huge shift in circumstances.
So George, just one more time, if you could just restate the legal standard. Yeah.
Yeah, so the way we say it in the resolution is such extension shall only be granted upon a showing by the applicant that the circumstances and conditions upon which the variances were originally granted have not substantially changed. And then if you want case law as well, there's also case law on it, but it basically says, absent a change in circumstances such as a material change in the site, a material change in the approved plans, or a relevant change in the law, for example, if the code was amended, the board should be approving requests for extensions. An applicant seeking an extension, quote, must be afforded an opportunity to show that circumstances have not changed, and the denial of an extension will only be sustained if proof of such circumstances is lacking. So material change, substantial change in circumstances, absent that, extension request should be generally approved.
Thank you, everyone. So Mercedes, do we have our applicant?
Hello?
It's not working.
Oh,
Yes.
there she is.
Oh, okay, I see.
there she
All right,
goes.
so we can't hear you from the Zoom, so I'm going to put you up to the microphone. Are you able to hear through the Zoom? Mhm. Okay. Okay, all right, sounds good. I don't know how this is going to go, so I hope it goes well.
Can she unmute herself on the screen?
She just muted herself.
George, why
Yeah.
don't you just put her on speaker via the phone?
That's what we're going to do now.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
if you speak now, you're in the microphone, and everyone can hear you here, and then let me know if, or let us know if you can't hear everyone else.
Okay, maybe it will be also helpful if you can identify yourself when you address me, because I don't have a view on the rooms. I don't know who's talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm George, I'm the attorney, and that's who you've been speaking to.
Great, thanks.
So this is Jordan Haug. I'm the chair of the zoning board. I just, were you able to hear any of the discussion we had regarding the standards and the law?
I was able to hear a little bit. Mostly the gist that I was able to get is that the request for extension is not affecting the scope of the variance or the nature of the variance, which you had approved in the past remains the same. It's only the time frame that we are asking for an extension. We're not changing anything else. I also was able to understand that the standard in the resolution apparently in the past is 6 months to apply for the permit, and that was the understanding. In my resolution, we learned later on in January when we received a copy of it that it was 6 months to obtain the permit. So that also caused some of the delays or the confusion. That's the two main points that I was able to understand.
Okay, and so just again for the record, George, when this was approved in October, late October of 23, is that correct?
October 28th, 2023.
Right, and then do we know when the applicant was given a copy of the resolution?
It was filed on October 31st, 2023, so that day or shortly thereafter, I would imagine.
Okay, and then, so, she says she did not read it until January 24, and then, and when was the initial submission made to the building department? Do we know that?
It was February.
Yeah, no, off the top of my head.
It was submitted in February.
Okay, so the applicant says it was February, and then, do you know, Bruce, do you know then when the initial ask for additional materials was made?
The initial, so the request for additional information was probably made within 2 to 3 weeks of receiving the application.
Okay, and do you know when that was responded to?
When they responded to it?
Correct.
They responded to it pretty much when the expiration date had basically come up. So that would have been, I believe,
April?
Yeah.
And was that response a substantive response or a request for an extension, or not yet?
No, not yet. There was a response, just the information was sent in, it was being reviewed, but then we were still waiting for the actual final copies of the plans, which
And-
we have not received as of yet.
So, okay. And again, normally, that would have been due under normal circumstances by April. But, yeah.
Normally that would have been submitted, and most likely, I said, if we received final plans with everything prior to the expiration, then the permit would have been issued.
All right. And then to the applicant, as far as what the issues are, and I know in your letter, you mentioned some personal circumstances. Were there issues though besides those? And you don't need to make those public if you don't want to. With your team, with your professionals, that led to the inability to make submissions or work with the building department in a timely manner.
Eva?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, were there, other than the, and I'm sorry to take over, Jordan.
No, yeah, go for it.
Other than
That's helpful.
Other than the personal issues that you mentioned in your letter, and of course, you don't have to go in public with those, were there any issues with contractors or architects or other design professionals that held you up in this process?
So I think that I addressed some of that as well in the letter in point 1 and 2 in terms of the complexity of some of the comments that we got from the building department after we had submitted the drawings require some discussion in terms to address those comments that also had an impact on budget and on contractors that were already working on quotes or not, because I reached out to a number of contractors and I was only able to get one. And then the one that I got wasn't good either, because now we had to change the drawings based on the comments that we received from the building department. So these are the complexities or the obstacles that we found. I think that for someone, this is the first time for me doing something of this nature, and Beekman is a very it's a place in which a lot of people are working in renovations, and it's really hard to get the attention of contractors for small jobs like mine. So it was challenging. It was more challenging than I anticipated or expected to get the quotes and to get the numbers and to address and find solutions on the comments that we received from the building department. So I think that was mostly it.
Okay, I just have two. I have two more questions. Can you just clarify that the plans that you have or are ready to submit do not change in any way the speaking to the variances that you were granted? So the exterior setbacks, are they changing or not in any future submission that you were to make to the building department?
Yes, I can confirm that the new plans don't have any changes at all in the exterior. They're only in the setbacks, as you said. The changes are basically to address the location of the first floor bedroom, the bedroom in the first floor. So it's only affecting the interior of the existing house.
Okay, and then my last question is, in your letter, paragraph 3I, you state that a new set of revised drawings are ready to be submitted. Is that true? If this
Yes.
request was granted, you'd be ready to submit this week?
Yes, correct. And Ari, my architect, wasn't able to come to the meeting today as he's out of town. I checked with him before the meeting and he confirmed that the drawings are ready to be submitted.
Okay. Anyone else can proceed to play the prosecutor? Anyone else from the board have any questions for the applicant?
I don't have any questions.
No questions?
No questions.
So George, we received some correspondence. I don't know, how should we handle that?
You could note it for the record. You can, think about it, but again, this is an extension request. The standard is different, not a public hearing.
Right.
It's just if circumstances have materially changed.
Sure. So, as this is not a public hearing, the board will note that we received at least 2 emails from the public with concerning this application for an extension. So I will acknowledge receipt of that for the record, and that the board has received them, read them, and will take them under advisement.
And
Go ahead.
to be clear, the correspondence is from Alfred Esposito and Elizabeth Strelchin. I believe both emails are from those parties.
Correct.
Just for the
But
record.
correct me if I'm wrong, we can't take those into consideration because this is not open to the public at this point.
Yeah, we're just noting them.
We're just noting
that they
can't be
they
taken
came
into
in.
consideration.
The people that had the comments,
Right.
they know that it was circulated, but again, the scope of this request is very limited.
All right. So with all of that being said, and the fact that there is not a public hearing open, then I will take a motion to approve or deny the extension request.
And-
Motion to approve.
And before we vote, Eva, I just want to be clear, any extension would be effective of April 28th. So it goes back to when the first 6 months was going to expire. So that would also then expire on October 28th of 2024, if the board proceeds with that. Are you aware of that and you understand that?
What is it? Can you repeat for me? Thank you for asking about this clarification. Which part will expire in October 2024?
You will have until October 28th, 2024 to obtain your building permit.
Okay, yes, I'm aware of that.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And in
Okay.
my that's what I was requesting in my letter.
Okay.
In my letter, I'm also asking for an additional 6 months to the already granted 6 months to start construction.
Yeah, everything, so this 6-month extension applies for the whole variance. So all those dates get kicked back 6 months. Effective again, April 28th. So 6 months from that date as opposed to the 6 months from the October 28th, 2023 date. So you would have until October 28th, 2024 to obtain your building permit, and then commence construction within 6 months of that, and then complete and obtain the CO 24 months of that.
Right, and then what I was trying to bring your attention to is that in my letter, I was asking also for an additional 6 months to commence the additional 6 months on top of the already granted 6 months to commence the construction, which would be 12 months
No.
in the last paragraph.
12 months to commence construction following the issuance. You don't think that you could commence construction within 6 months of the issuance of the building permit?
So unfortunately, and I'm addressing this in the letter, so you have the information in front of you,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, things have evolved, and this was not anticipated. I might not be in the country for a few months in the coming 6-8 months, and I won't be able to be supervising the construction, so I don't think this is ideal. This is why I was asking for an additional 6 months to the already stipulated 6 months.
So for the board's edification, you can go about this in 2 ways. You can either say you get the 6-month extension and then we cross that bridge if and when we get there. But if the applicant is going to be out of the country or whatever the case is, you can also sort of administratively grant 2 6-month extensions, right? So you get the 6 months and then 6 months thereafter. But that's sort of how we could go about it. You can always say 6 months now and then cross that bridge if and when we get there, if there are difficulties with the
And what
commencement.
happens if we deny? And when can the applicant come back with a new application, right? Because it takes not before 12 months.
If you deny,
If we don't grant.
if you don't grant the extension request, they'll come back with an application for the same variance that you have already granted.
It's not a substantial change to the variance.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
Just
so
trying
if,
to
if,
understand
if,
possibilities.
yeah, the opposite possibility, yeah, if it's denied, they would have to come back with a new application for a variance. That would be, from what I understand, the same application, just with a different date on it this time, so.
Wouldn't they have to wait 12 months before they came back?
I don't,
submitting an
off the top of
application?
my head, I'm not sure if and how long they would have to wait.
I thought there was a 12-month period. I could be mistaken on that, but I thought.
Off
there
the
was a
top of
12
my head, I'm not sure.
So George, just academically, if someone was to run into delays, whatever, or just couldn't do it, but the application didn't substantially change, does the case law require us to just give unlimited extensions?
You don't have to give unlimited extensions. Everything is within reason. This is the first request for an extension, with whatever that comes with. There are certain municipalities that give 10, 11, 12 six-month extensions. It really, and that's the benefit of being able to speak to the applicant. Of course, on bigger projects, you know, huge multifamilies, it might take a long time. On smaller houses, it might take less time. Case law does not require unlimited, but obviously this is the first extension request.
There's no
so-
limit either.
No, I mean, like I said, I've seen some municipalities where people are on 12, 13, and 14. 14th six-month extension, that's 7 years.
But I guess my question is there a standard? Like, if there's no substantial change, that's a standard, right? And so, in theory, then, if that is the legal standard, then it should be unlimited. But is there also like a reasonable standard as well?
Yeah, there has to be a reasonableness to the request.
Sure.
You know, the idea of putting the time limit on a variance is to encourage, once you get this variance, you don't just sit on it for 100 years and your successors get the benefit of the variance.
Right. Well, I guess that was where I was going.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the point of the timelines if,
Yeah.
you know?
It's not, at some point, yeah, you know, it's, are you actually doing construction? Are you actually speaking? But we're certainly not at that
No,
point
right,
right
yeah.
now, yeah.
I was just, again,
Yeah.
academically, just
Yeah.
trying to understand.
Yeah, no, like I said, some places, I'm telling you, 7, 8 years out, they're still granting extensions, but those, some are massive projects that have to do with funding or with approvals from state and county agencies and things like that.
All right.
Right.
So,
I'm going to withdraw what I said before because I thought we were approving a 6-month retroactive. But now I'm hearing the request is different than that.
So it would be a 6-month retroactive, and as I explained, I think, given that there might be issues with finishing construction in 12 months, maybe it makes sense up to the board to sort of cross that bridge if and when you get there, if there's another request needed. But you could certainly retroactively extend it for 6 months and then see where it falls in that 6-month time frame for to obtain, and then thereafter for construction.
And then they come back to us and they
Yes,
keep us
yeah.
updated on everything that's going
Yeah,
on, so
if-
we know they are moving forward.
Exactly.
You know, because we don't want to be punitive about it.
So if that's the case, I'll put my motion forward to approve retro for 6-month extension, a retro 6-month extension.
so to be clear, Montos, that's a motion to retroactively extend the deadline to be approved for a building permit through October 28th, 2024, but nothing with respect to the extension of the 1 year to begin, or is it 1 year or is it 6 months from the
It's
issuance?
6 months thereafter. So Montos, if I'm understanding correct, it's a 6-month extension of the variance approval as a whole.
Correct.
Nothing specifically changing within those time periods to extend those time periods. It's just a retroactive 6-month extension of the variance.
Correct. That is my motion to approve.
Okay, and that is Montos's motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Stowe, and then I will call the roll. Stowe,
Yes.
Judy,
I just want to be clear. So if this person needs another extension, they can come in
Yes.
and they can get it?
Yeah.
They can request
This
it.
doesn't preclude them?
Correct.
Okay, I agree then. Yes, I.
Judy's a yes. Montos?
Yes.
And Elaine? Yes. I am also a yes. So you now are extended for all deadlines, so it moves your building permit deadline to the 28th of October of this year, and again, that's for the approval, not the submission. And then from the date of that issuance, it is 6 months. So it's not 6 months from the 28th, it's from 6 months from whenever it's granted, correct?
Yes.
And so if there is a need for an additional extension request, it needs to be made, obviously, prior to the expiration again. So there should not be, in this case, another need for a retroactive request. It should be a timely request if one is needed. So assuming it's issued October 1st, then it would need to be made prior to April 1st? Is that
Yes.
math right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You understand that, Ms. Garcia?
Let me just rephrase it back to you to see if I understand. There is an approval. The meeting has ended. Sorry, let me close this. Here's some echo. The extension has been approved for me to obtain the permit, and the way it works retroactively with the dates is that the new deadline to obtain this permit is the 28th of October of 2024. This is one thing. And after that, I understand that the request for another extension to commence the construction has not been approved. Is this correct?
You get it automatically.
Yeah, to be clear, the request for an added 6 months to the approved 6 months to commence has not
Yep.
been granted. So you take the resolution that was granted, you have until October 28th, 2024 to obtain your building permit. You have 6 months after
From there
to
commence the
commence.
construction.
Yes. And if you
Okay.
need more time at that point, you can always make another application, and as the chairman noted, that one should be a timely application, now that we've sort of gotten behind any of the confusion. So you would have 6 months from whenever that building permit is obtained to, if you need more time for commence construction, come to the ZBA and say,
Before that day.
yeah, before that deadline, and say, I'm running into
Before
trouble.
that deadline,
Yeah.
okay. So just writing another letter and going to the CBA, and I just want to note that might be difficult because I might not be in the country.
Yeah, we understand. I think the board understands that as well, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So whatever, be in touch, or you can have your architect be in touch with the building department, but the next step is obtaining the building permit, and then the clock starts running from then, as long as your building permit is obtained before October 28th of 2024.
Okay.
All right.
That's clear.
All right, thank
That's
you very
clear.
much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So just some open workshopping. I don't love how those dates work, meaning there's a grant of a variance and there's a date certain, right? So, meaning we granted the variance on October 28th, 2023, and she had until April 28th, 2024 to get a building permit. But if the building permit was granted on January 15th, she really had, now the dates change. And so it goes from January 15th to June 15th. And so I just wonder if it's not confusing to people in that it's like you
dates
hear, yeah, it's yes. And so you hear, oh, it's 6 months to get the building permit, and then it's 6 months to construction, but it changes based on when the building permit's issued.
Yeah.
Right.
And I understand it, but I just
Yeah.
don't know if it's not
No,
confusing to the
that's
public.
definitely a valid point,
A
and
little history on that portion. So within the local law that governs the building department, with issuing building permits, any building permit is issued, it states in there that you need to start work within 6 months of the issuance. And then you have 2 years from the date of the building permit before it expires. So that's probably where that all came from, was out of that section of the code.
Right.
And I understand that it requires some mathematics. On the other hand, not only, obligated by code, but sort of when you're in this realm, it's calendaring what those dates are. And I just think of it as the opposite situation where maybe you have 6 months, let's say something today, August 20th. You have 6 months, that puts you at February 20th. And then if you got a building permit on February 20th, you'd have 6 months to commence construction, which puts you at August 20th. But if you got your building permit tomorrow, you now have a year, as opposed, you have 364 days until August 20th.
But you don't, right? You only have 6 months from the
Yeah,
date.
with the way it's worded now. If there were date certains, that's the issue with the date certain. We could always look into potentially clarifying language. I know, Bruce, you and I had a conversation a month or two back on this. And I'd have to go look back at my notes to sort of see what the rationale was, but the language right now is pretty standard. It's pretty based on code.
Yeah.
It's just,
I understand when with Bruce's explanation, it makes sense to me. It's just because normal building permits don't need a variance, so it makes sense to me. Because they're skipping this step in a way. They're not required to do this step, so it's 6 months from the issuance of a building permit. If somebody doesn't need a variance, they're just getting the building permit, and the clock starts for them there. Here, there's just that additional
layer to keep in
layer.
mind.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess. And I'm sure you did do this, but it should just be explained that the date changes, clearly to the applicant, meaning they don't have a year. They don't have a year.
It's not from today.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you'd like, we can start incorporating that into meetings and make that very clear for each application.
It's a good point, George. I can tell people that.
I can tell people too. we can tell people that. But yeah, certainly in this realm, it's important to for everyone out there, keep track of the dates. Put it on your calendar because they come up fast.
Yeah, I've just noted, or I feel like we've had an increase in the need for retroactive applications, and I know some of that was because we changed the way we were granting, and so, I just think we need to be clear, obviously, and people should be timely, obviously, and so I just want to be better. I want everyone to be better.
Strive to be better,
including myself.
Okay, Melania.
No, there we go.
I don't want to be
All right. With that, sorry, audience, for that dialogue. With that, I would like a motion to open the public hearing on agenda item number 2.
Motion open?
Motion from Montes. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Judy. All in favor? Aye. Application number 2, or agenda item number 2 is 60 Teller Avenue. Mr. Applicant.
Not sure what's the best way to do things with audio visuals and regular ears.
So, number 1, if you could speak into the microphone, and then if you could state your name and address for the record, and then just try to speak into the microphone.
Okay. So sorry, I said I'm not sure the best way to do audio visuals. I'm not a regular here. My name is Travis Fisher. I am a homeowner at 60 Teller Avenue. The project that we would like to do is to put in a pool in our backyard with a deck surrounding it. I think maybe I should talk through, if I understand correctly, sort of the outlines of what's the application for and something about the justification for why we think a variance would be appropriate here. Basically, the project we would like to do is to install an above-ground pool, oval pool, dimensions 33 feet by 18 feet in our backyard at 60 Teller Avenue. Our property is a little under 1/4 of an acre. We have sort of an oversized lot in an idiosyncratic old neighborhood. We have a backyard that has adequate space for this pool and the deck, but if we would try to position it in the way where the zoning code would require, we'll have a 20-foot distance from the back property line and a 10-foot distance from the side property line, as we understand from the building department. And in order to position this pool and deck according to those setbacks. It would be close enough to the house with its existing deck off of our back stairs that it would basically cut our backyard off from the side yard, where you'd have to go all the way around on the little corridor behind the pool by the fence in order to make it from one side to the other. So
Yeah, I can't hear you.
sorry, let me see if I can speak more
You
carefully.
might want to straighten that, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay.
So, should I start over, or did you?
I just want to know what you're saying about, because I read all the materials.
Okay.
So you're saying that pushing the pool more towards the back of your house in order to get the 20-foot required setback, it somehow cuts off your side yard.
Yeah, it would basically be where we would have some little, this snaking area around the back and the side in order to get from one side of the yard to the other, from the driveway side over to the side yard. So that's not an attractive solution for us. We think that we would like to ask for the variance in order to have the pool and its deck then situated closer to the rear of the property. We've had the architect plans drawn up where we have the pool a little over 10 feet from both of the rear and side, and the deck goes a little bit closer than that, so that the closest distance to the rear yard on the diagram here is 7.5 feet, and the closest distance to the side yard is 8 feet. And we have the detailed architectural diagrams for the planned deck and the details of the pool available. I'm not sure if we need to talk through that. My understanding of this meeting is that the important part is to, sort of discuss the layout that requires the variance, and so that's the part of this layout that requires this variance, is that the setbacks don't match the zoning code. Yes.
Could I ask, did you provide in here, I looked through it and I can't find it, a drawing that shows what it would look like if in fact you kept to the current requirements for the setbacks?
No, we don't have an alternate drawing that would be the, I guess you're asking, have we gotten any kind of rendering or architectural diagram for an alternate plan that is...
That meets the requirements of the setbacks?
We didn't formally draw that up. We looked at it, we said, no, this is not something we would want to do, and didn't ever draw that up formally. If you'd like, I can try to illustrate for you what it would look like, referencing the existing diagrams that we have, but no, I don't have an alternate diagram.
Why such a big pool and such a big deck on such a small lot?
My wife wants a big pool, and we've got 2 kids. We wanted to be able to have a big place to play. The real reason for the size is just preference. I think in terms of the considerations of how all of these dimensions are going to interact, if the pool was a bit smaller, it's not going to change things substantially. We would still be hoping to push it back near the back of the property line, because then we have the available space to flow through, and we would still probably be in front of you with a similar request, even if the pool size was a bit smaller.
I don't know if I agree with what you just said. It's very easy to get rid of the side yard setback by minimizing the deck all the way
Yes,
around the pool.
The real difficulty is the rear yard setback, this 20 feet. We have sort of from the back steps of the house and the existing deck that's there. It's a little over 40 feet to the...
I don't disagree with you. Well, I guess the point I'm going at is I wouldn't consider this to be the minimal necessary to accomplish what you were looking for. That's where I'm going with this.
Okay. it's hard to argue that, yes, of course, we could set our sights smaller and think about a smaller pool, a smaller deck. You know, the question is sort of what's reasonable for the benefits that we would like to get from this and enjoying our own property, and what's the cost to anyone else in terms of what's the balance between what's the benefits of what we're getting versus any externalities for the, you know, the items that you were listing at the beginning of the meeting, Jordan, about what is the, you know, character of the neighborhood or any detriment to neighboring properties and so on. So I sent an email earlier trying to lay out my best case regarding this. Let me try to read through this, and so I don't forget any of the points that I wanted to make, and then maybe.
Speak close to the microphone, too.
Okay, sorry. Let me try that closer to the microphone again.
There you go.
Per the zoning statute as described on the webpage, zoning board must find in favor of the variance if on balance the benefits to the applicant outweigh any detriment it will cause to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. In this, the zoning board is to consider 5 factors: neighborhood character, alternatives, substantiality, effect on physical or environmental conditions, and the extent to which the difficulty is self-created. The benefit of the variance for us is to be able to install the pool and the surrounding deck in a way which will allow us the full enjoyment of our yard. In order to situate the pool within the yard in a way which would satisfy the zone setbacks, 20 feet from the rear property and 10 feet from the side property, we would have to have the pool butting up against our existing deck in the house in a way which effectively disconnects the backyard and the side yard. We would prefer to avoid this. Regarding the character of the neighborhood, this is a residential neighborhood populated by old housing stock, which largely predates the zoning code. The setbacks envisioned by the code are not satisfied by any of the properties on our block. The existing building environment has each property largely using their full plot with much more minimal setbacks. And this has been the situation since long before any of the current property owners occupied these properties. Specifically, of the 6 houses on the block, 3 have garages and 1 has a garage converted into an accessory dwelling. All of these structures are closer to the property lines than the envisioned setbacks. 3 of the 6 houses are closer to the property lines than the envisioned setbacks. We do currently have a privacy fence situated by mutual agreement with George Coughlin at the back and Steve Burns at the side. At the back, the fence is on the property line, and the side it's near a tree line, which is then on the property line. Across the back property line, George Coughlin's garage, his hot tub, and gazebo are all closer than 20 feet from his back property line. Across the back corner, Patrick Pisanelli has a tool shed near to on the corner of the property line without any substantial setback. On the side property line, Steve Burns has a tool shed near the property line. His house is closer than 10 feet to the property line and has a more recently added deck overlooking the fence, also closer than 10 feet to the property line. The point of this discussion isn't to say that any of our neighbors is doing anything wrong. It's just that the character of the neighborhood is that existing uses don't generally satisfy the setbacks specified in the zoning code. Regarding alternatives, the main obvious alternative would be to situate the pool farther from the property line. As discussed above, this would be much less functional for our use of the property. An alternative, as you're mentioning, Mr. Vakirtsis, is also whether we might consider a smaller pool or smaller deck, which would be less of a benefit to us for our enjoyment of the pool and deck. Regarding the substantiality of the variance, we feel that the variance that we're asking for would still be in line with other accepted features within the neighborhood. For instance, the deck that Steve has near our property line overlooking our fence. Regarding the effect on physical or environmental conditions, the positioning of the pool at the back of our yard puts it adjacent to those tool sheds of Steve and Pat, and across from largely some trees and overgrowth at the back of George's yard. There may be some minimal impact on the noise environment and the sound of children's playing and so on. There are no tree removals or potential for erosion
Could
or
you speak
impact.
in the microphone, please?
Sorry. or potential for impact on other environmental factors. Regarding self-created
Could you just
difficult...
repeat your last point there?
Sorry, that I don't believe there's any environmental concerns about, erosion or tree removal or any of this stuff.
I think the one before that.
That there may be some minimal impact from noise, things like children playing. I don't, we are aware of a concern expressed from one of our neighbors, George, who's in the back here, and who probably will come up and express his own views more clearly, that he has reservations largely about the deck part of this plan, more so than the pool, that he expressed to me a concern that if we have this deck sort of overlooking the fence, that will reduce the amount of privacy. We've enjoyed having the privacy fence between us, and the privacy would be lessened a bit by having the elevated deck.
And what's your counter to that? What is your counter to that?
That the privacy fence is something that we installed. It's nice, but it's not a requirement for, existence in this neighborhood. We have a similar situation with another of our neighbors, Steve, where he's put in a deck that's, similar distance to our fence, overlooking our fence. It's that's the character of how things are done in our neighborhood.
You mentioned a bunch of your neighbors supposedly, allegedly, having items closer to the property line than would be by code. Is your current garage inside the would-be setback? Would it be constructed today?
So our current garage is closer to the property boundary than the zoning code would anticipate, just as everyone else's garage on the block is. I believe our setbacks are 5 feet on the side and maybe 4 feet on the rear, something like this.
Is that because it predated zoning,
Yes, I believe so.
just like the rest of the neighborhood?
Yes, exactly.
They're grandfathered.
Yes,
You're grandfathered for that.
yes.
But the new stuff,
But
that's why you have
the
the
new stuff
zoning.
requires variances
Right.
if it will not satisfy the code. But the point that I'm trying to make is that it's not out of character for the nature of our neighborhood for such variances to be considered. That it, things are generally set close to the property lines, and that's the character.
Are
that
there
we-
any pools? Are there any pools set right by the property lines where?
There are no pools existing on our block. We have a hot tub that's not near the property line. George has a hot tub that is near the property line. I don't know of any other hot tubs.
Thanks.
So if I'm understanding your plans right, your pool is 12 feet away from your garage, correct? Your proposed pool is 12 feet away from the garage.
Yes, I believe that's
And if
correct.
you add the deck, which would be another 6 feet, you would be 6 feet away from the garage, correct?
Yes.
So if you were to shift this over 2 more feet closer to the garage, you wouldn't need a side yard setback.
Yes, correct, but we would still need the rear yard setback.
That wasn't my statement. My question was confirmation on the side yard. You wouldn't need a side yard setback.
Yes, I believe you are correct.
Okay.
Maybe there's something that I misunderstand. Does that somehow make a difference to you if there is one setback versus
It minimizes the request for
two?
variance
Uh-huh,
in half.
okay.
If you were to do that, we wouldn't have a say on that side yard.
So for your benefit and for the public's benefit that might watch this back, what Montos is getting at is if there's 2 variances, they are looking, or you're asking to grant 2 variations from the zoning code where you can minimize variances necessary in terms of number of variances, or the degree of the variance, yeah. Those are things that the board considers and the board advocates for and wants to see. So that's where Montos is getting to, I believe.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I would go the same situation on the rear yard. How far away are you from the house with the proposed plans?
Let me see if I can do a bit of math here. I believe we have a total of about 8 feet away from the bottom of the stairs, the edge of the deck at the rear of the house with the current plans.
So you could shift it towards the house and minimize the variance on the rear yard as well.
We could, but we, as I tried to make clear, we think that if you go any closer to the house, then we won't have a very good corridor for foot traffic between the house and the pool. And so that was something that we thought was a benefit that was substantial to us, is if we can maintain that good corridor between the house and the pool.
Have you considered, there's a house close by, they can even have this size pool, but there's a house close by on Vine Street. I used to own it. We put an above-ground pool and our deck wrapped right around the pool from the house, and it really worked great. So you walked out of the house onto the deck, and you wouldn't even need a variance.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have to go down the stairs and come up for the pool. You could just incorporate the pool closer to the house, incorporate that deck right into the existing deck.
We did discuss this with the pool contractor. He had a similar suggestion, and that is very much not our preference for how to do things. If we can make it work a different way, we would feel that it works better for us a different way.
Is that an aesthetic preference, or is there some practical?
I'm in a meeting, gotta go. Trying to hit them.
I guess I would characterize that as more of a functional aesthetic preference. We think that it would help us how we interact with the yard, but I don't know if that's something that you can quantify easily. The other thing that we would consider as something that would be helpful to us if we could go forward with getting approval for locating the pool, because the installation for this, we have to have the pool installed first, and electric and so on. If we could decide that the variance is reasonable for siting the pool in a particular location, and we have to go back through another round of discussing what's minimal or possibly non-variance requiring versions of the deck that could keep everyone satisfied. Then we would definitely be happy if we could have the zoning board at least approve the siting of the pool in the location where we were looking at, which has only a single variance required relative to the setbacks. It would be within 20 feet of the backyard, but it would be more than 10 feet from the side property line. So if we would consider first just approving to do the pool only, and then that may be a more minimal thing that we can talk about as a way to get something before we try to if it sounds like you guys are leaning towards feeling like we've not minimized our impact of the the things we're asking for with the deck, but maybe you can feel like we have minimized what we're asking for about the pool and go ahead with that part.
Well, it's incumbent upon the board to try to get the lease, that's what Mr. Vakurtzis was saying, to, if it's possible, to situate it within or closer with lesser variances, that's our job. That's what we're here for,
Okay.
is to minimize it. Because it is self-created, you just want it where you want it. Doesn't need to be there, you have plenty of room. That's my understanding.
So I,
No, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. I apologize. Yes.
So I think for the purposes of the hearing, we should open it up to the public, allow the public to speak, and then you'll have another opportunity, of course, to respond to us. And we'll probably work through some type of plan. But let's let the public speak now, and then we'll call you back up after their opportunity to speak has concluded.
Okay.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on agenda item number 2? Please step forth, state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Into the microphone.
Yes, and speak into the
Good
microphone.
evening, everyone. My name is George Coughlin. I live at 9 John Street. I'm the homeowner there. My wife is here present too. I live behind Travis, the Fishers on Teller Avenue. All right. I did get a letter from the city of Beacon in regards to the variance application. We're pretty much here to oppose the variance that they're applying for. In regards to change to the neighborhood character, currently there are no homes with pools within setbacks. Many already have pre-existing non-conforming structures, so we believe adding additional non-conforming structures is detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. The alternatives could be possibly a smaller pool, deck as well, which would not need any of these type of setbacks. They're asking for a 12.5 feet variance, which is approximately 62%, and it is a substantial number. As far as effect on physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood, we believe that it will have somewhat of an adverse effect on the neighborhood. It is a very large pool and deck, which run almost the entire length of our backyard, being raised above the fence. There are reasons the city has variances. Within something this large, so close to our property, it would detract from our privacy and use of our yard. If it was a smaller structure within the setbacks, it would have less or physical impact on our property. And it is alleged that difficulty is self-created, and is yes. We are not opposed to our neighbors improving their property as they see fit. We would just request that they may be done within the guidelines without such a substantial variance to be reported. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this agenda item? All right. With that, I guess we should have some discussion amongst the board. Elaine, you've been quiet.
The first thought is a 33-foot pool.
Microphone,
Am I on?
there you go.
A 33-foot long pool.
You're off. There's no light.
Oh,
Now you're on.
there you go.
There.
Oh, there we go. A 33-long-foot pool is rather large, and then combined with a deck. I'm not familiar with the sizes pools go up and down, but I would think there's something even slightly smaller that would be a better fit for the yard. If there's 8 feet from the deck to the house, one thought I had was if you moved the whole thing 2 feet closer to the house, you'd have 6 foot to get through. And if you cut didn't make the deck a complete wraparound, you would gain 5 feet across the back. You could, as Montos said, you could move it closer to the garage by 3 feet and not need the one on the side. And with those suggestions, you would at least lessen the setback, the variance required for the back.
Right, right. And I think that's the key, in my opinion, is there's many different ways to minimize, like, I think it's clear to me anyway, this is not the minimum variance necessary. And there are many different ways to get to smaller variance requests, possibly eliminating one variance, maybe a total reduction. You could argue if eliminating the side yard but not eliminating the rear yard, well, is that better than reducing both by some? You could get into those arguments. Bruce, from your perspective, what do you see on the property and your concerns, I guess, if anything?
There's no concerns I have. It's a tough situation with the pools because they're accessory structures to the house, but the zoning code regulates them as if they were the house itself. So if they were to build a garage today, I believe the setbacks are far less to both the rear and side property line. So they're held to a higher standard with a pool as opposed
Because
to
it's an attractive nuisance.
Yeah, as opposed to a shed.
It's a dangerous thing.
Well,
There's the other issue is that the state code requires them to put in all the safety aspects of it, having
Fence.
for the stairs, they would have to have a gate, self-closing latching gate, and there would have to be a maximum or a minimum 4-foot high fence around the pool.
Right.
So that no child could get in there,
Right.
when it's unsupervised. So that's the safety thing is the one thing, but again, as it's an accessory structure though, to the house, it's not technically the house itself. So if it was a garage, the garage could be closer to the property line. Such as a shed would be, or any other, accessory structure, let's say.
go ahead.
And there's also less usage. I mean, you pull your car into the garage, you pull your lawnmower and you leave. The pool is an entertainment place. There's noise. This is why the setbacks are further away from the neighbors, because there's a lot of activity, hopefully.
Correct.
Are there other examples of things like pools that are categorized like that? Like that would be considered not an accessory structure in the way that a shed is?
With a pool?
Other than a pool?
Oh, other than a pool.
Mm-hmm.
Where there's noise?
Or not, just...
Or not.
Yeah.
Even like, an accessory dwelling unit could be closer to the property line. But most of the time it would be, with something with activity in it, it's normally gonna be, just open space. So if it's their backyard itself, the kids could be playing in the
Of course,
backyard,
right.
Right up to the property line, and they're gonna be making noise, so.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I wonder the fundamental rationale for that setback. I mean, the rules, the regulations say it's a certain number of feet, with the implication that if you're encroaching on it, the 20 feet in the back, for example, that the city is attempting to impose a standard, right? But that standard is based on some understanding, like, freedom from the noise coming from your neighbor's yard, for example. So, I don't know, it's implicit in our rationale for why we believe that people should not encroach on the zoning regs, on the area requirements. So, the fact that it's such a large structure and the rationale that that he's offered us is that they like the idea of having it where they want to have it, as opposed to doing it within the zoning regs. It just strikes me as sort of, it's caprice, it's capriciousness. So,
That was my point.
Yeah.
There is an ability to put even this structure
somewhere
within,
else.
within the setbacks required, so that's the problem I have with it. There is a way to do it,
Yeah, I mean, those are my comments exactly.
yeah.
There is a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish and not be asking us to the degree that you're asking us for a variance. And
Maybe you want to
I
consider
did not
it.
get the impression that you were willing to entertain that. I could be wrong on how I interpreted the impression. But there are ways you can achieve what you want to achieve. I think what you want to achieve is commendable for you and your family. That's great. But there are ways to achieve what you're trying to achieve without asking us for the degree of variances, plural, that you're asking us for. And again, we are doing this to govern the current zoning laws, to not question the zoning laws, but to govern them for their purpose, protecting the neighborhood, protecting you to a degree, protecting the neighbors, et cetera, et cetera.
And everybody having the same standards to live with, too.
Right.
Fairness.
So, after hearing that discussion, you have a few options, of course. You could take your plans and revise them. You could revise them to a point where you don't need a variance. You could revise them to a point where your application changes, and then or you let us know that's your intention, and then you could come back next month with an updated request, possibly reducing the total amount of variance you need, or you could ask us to move forward, and then we would get further specific on how we felt about each criteria, and then vote. And then I'm getting a look, but
But if we did vote and we voted a negative vote, you'd be kind of stuck with it. Where if you go back and, am I right? If you go back and maybe speak with your family and think, maybe you want to massage it a little or whatever they call it, you might be able to come back and then, I think it would be my advice that you try to revise it a little bit.
so George, procedurally, can you just discuss if there was a denial, what that would look like?
Yeah, if there was a denial, typically we prefer that we prepare a denial to be voted on at the next meeting and not off the cuff, so that we can have all the explanations and all the rationale there, which implicitly gives the applicant another opportunity. But there's a difference between the applicant coming with revisions and the applicant coming to hear something they don't want to hear. That's the mechanics behind the denial. Another thing I wanted to touch on, the applicant, if I understood correctly, asked about the potential of voting solely on the pool and not the deck. And I'm looking at the drawings, and, we have dimensions for the pool versus the deck. But, you guys are also entitled to say, let's not separate it that way, because we want to see what the final placement is, which sounds like what is being asked anyway. But I just wanted to address that so that the applicant understands that that
Yeah.
was considered.
I have a question. The deck incorporates the fence that is required, because I know there's right, Bruce? There's a requirement for fencing for safety around the pool. Does the deck incorporate that fencing? So he's got the steps that go up, and the fence goes around it.
Well, it depends on how they're doing it. So if it's an above-ground pool, and the pool walls are more than 48 inches above the ground, then the wall of the pool acts as the barrier.
Oh,
So the only thing then would be is the point of access to the pool. So if there's a ladder or something, there's specific requirements for the ladder to be removable or lockable, so that nobody can get into the pool at that point. So
Okay.
if it was an in-ground pool, then yes, then the fence requirements come into play, where you need a minimum four-foot high fence.
And so the deck makes if there was no deck in this plan, the setback would be from the pool, not the fence around the pool, correct?
Correct, it would be to the pool itself if there was no deck. But being the deck is attached, then we're measuring from the deck to the property line.
Understood.
So the measurements that we are considering, the 7.5 foot and 8 foot, that's to the deck?
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Okay.
And if you look at the diagram, if you look at the distance for the pool itself, there's an additional 3 feet, so that would be 10.5 feet, and 11 feet from the property line. 10.5 from the rear and 11 from the side, the way that we have the pool alone.
So to be clear though, is your request, are you asking us to potentially vote on just the pool? Would you do this project without the deck?
So we would do it initially without the deck, and then consider if we can find a way to put in a deck that will satisfy either not requiring a variance or a minimal variance.
If you're gonna put the deck on it later, that doesn't,
You're just complicating the issue.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to do everything in one go. We wanted to come to you with everything, and thought that would be easier. But if the deck makes it harder, then we'd like to get it easier and get something done.
And to that extent, I think that the board would probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it would be easier for the board to comprehend where the pool would be, looking at the pool and the deck together, as opposed to saying, okay, the pool is going to be here, now figure out the deck based on that, right? I think that's sort of where we're going, where you guys are going, rather. I just want the communication to be clear here, so that there's no ambiguity.
so Bruce, is it the fence? I mean, is it the edge of the deck that has the setback? Am I?
Yes, it
Yeah.
would be the edge of the deck.
So there's 3 foot on either side of that, that's a 3-foot deck on either side, so that's 6 feet that the pool would be moved. So,
So right now, technically,
wouldn't have a deck.
the deck is 7.5 feet from the rear yard, but the pool itself is 10.5 feet from the rear yard. And the deck itself is 8 feet from the side yard, but the pool itself is 11 feet from the side yard. So what the applicant was saying, I believe, is that the pool itself only violates the rear yard setback, not the side yard. The deck violates both, and was asking if it's possible to vote on just the pool that needs the one. But you guys,
But I
obviously.
want to clarify on that. He is, correct me if I'm wrong, but the applicant is saying to vote on it, not considering the deck, but considering the pool in the existing footprint that it sits now. So it's not taking up the additional 3 feet. It's not moving it closer to the house. It's where is it today? So he's saying he would have 11 feet on the side, so he would satisfy the 10. He would have the 7.5 plus 3, he would have 10.5 where he needs 20. So he's asking to consider that and granting a variance on the 10.5, which is short on the 20.
But don't we anticipate that somebody with a pool like this is gonna wanna put a deck around it of some sort?
We do, and that's potential complication.
And we-
Correct.
But I would rather, if it was me, I would say I'd rather hear it all at once.
I would too.
Not to decide them independently, to give a variance, let's say, for the pool, knowing that he's gonna encroach somewhere potentially into the backyard and side yard later on. It's crazy.
I agree. I think it overly complicates the issue, both from I mean, you can simplify it down to what it just was, but I don't think that that's the best application anyway. If you're going to eliminate the deck, I think if I was giving advice, it would be for the applicant to come back with what he wants to do, knowing that the board would like him to reduce their total variance request. And short of that, of course, and if he wants to proceed, we can vote. And that is what I would say to you.
Okay.
So, with that being said, how would you like us to proceed, or how would you like to proceed?
That being the information, I would like to go away and discuss options and come back to you on email.
All right. So do we need to
Come
do?
back to us on what?
Email. I assume that's how I, get on the agenda for another hearing or
Or you could tell us tonight, and we'll put you on the agenda for next month.
Okay, I don't know what I'm going to say to you next month, but if you...
That's okay. So you can be on the agenda for next month. You can communicate with Mercedes or whoever you've been communicating on whether you want to adjourn again. You don't there's no requirement to appear next. You could say, next month is September. I'm still working on this. I'll be back in October.
Okay.
There's no requirement to come next month. The only caveat is if you have revisions, you have to get them in by
The last Tuesday of the month.
the last Tuesday of the month in order to be heard on those revisions at the next month. So next month's meeting might be, let's say, September 20th, I don't know. You can't submit revisions on September 19th to be heard on those revisions at the September 20th meeting. So
Yeah.
The next meeting is September 17th.
So right, so the realistic expectation, and this is for you and for the public, right? So the deadline to submit is a week from today. It's very doubtful that you'll have a revision ready in 1 week. So it's fair to assume, although everyone should check, that you'll likely request an adjournment in September. Maybe you'll make a submission in September for the October meeting, and that's possibly when you would be back with a new application, unless somehow you got revised plans in by the 27th, which is next Tuesday, and then you would be heard on the 17th, correct? Great.
and if you need an adjournment, you don't have to show up to ask for an adjournment. You could email Mercedes, and you don't even have to show up the next month. But there is to Jordan's point, there's a tight timeline. So there's no, obligation. Absolutely, you have 7 days. Once you leave from here, start working on a revision, but just keep that in mind.
Okay.
Let me know what you decide to do.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, so I will ask for a motion to adjourn the public hearing to the September 17th meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Motion to-
Go ahead.
Motion by Montos, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Judy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing on agenda item number 3?
So moved.
Motion by Stowe, can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Montos, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Mr. Application number 3.
Good evening, Jason Litchwick from JL Architecture. I'm here to represent Cindy Hayes and Josh Hayes at 20 Water Street. We're seeking a variance for the rear yard setback, which requires 20 feet, and we're proposing 11'9". The existing building has a roof, a shed roof on the back of the house that is the same exact footprint of the deck that we're providing. So we're looking to take that shed roof down and put a deck in its place for the second floor. The rest of the building, I'm sure you're aware of what 20 Water Street is. It's in disrepair, and we're looking to kind of renovate the whole entire house. And, with the new layout that we're doing, we're gonna have a master bedroom suite on the second floor, and we'll remove that shed roof that's there, provide a walkout deck for the primary bedroom.
Is there a variance now for the shed roof that is there? Or is it grandfathered in?
It's a pre-existing nonconformity.
Pre-existing non-conforming, okay.
Just for some history, I think I'm familiar with this building. This is this currently a dilapidated building that was foreclosed on, possibly?
Yes.
Okay, and so you may not know. Do you know how long the property has been vacant and further dilapidating?
That I don't know.
Well, just for the for the edification of the board, I am familiar with this property due to reasons, and I just know it's been sitting there for at least 10 years, just
Degrading.
yes,
Degrading.
degrading for
Falling
whatever
down.
that's worth. For whatever that's worth.
Okay.
And then, if you don't mind, just for the board's edification, I know I sort of got confused when I saw this. Looking at the elevations, which, is it the deck on the right side of the proposed south? Is that what it is?
Proposed east.
Proposed east.
Yeah, and you can see it on the side of the north and the
Okay, so that's, okay. You guys got that?
So is that the only change being proposed?
Yes.
That's it? Second floor deck?
I'm sorry?
Second floor deck?
Correct, yep.
What is immediately behind that property?
It's a big embankment that goes up to, I think, a multifamily building up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, it goes up, there's a multifamily, but I believe the old firehouse, Beekman Engine, is right behind there as well, on the hill, so East Main Street, East Main Street.
So not a house.
No.
No, yeah, I believe it backs up to the firehouse more than it does the multifamily, if I remember right.
What's the current plan for that firehouse? Do we know? You don't have to answer that.
The city has for it, so the municipality will use it, so I'm not sure where they're going with it.
Okay. Yep. Fair enough. Okay. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this application? Come forth and state your name and address for the record.
David Murphy. No, I'm speaking of the mic.
Yes, please.
I'm David Murphy. I live across the street at 19 Water Street, and I was going to send in an email, and then I was too late. So I'll just go ahead and read it. I hope this letter of support isn't too late for the deck variance request at 20 Water Street. The City Council and Building Office have dragged their feet on doing anything to get this zombie of a house to the market despite multiple complaints over the last few years. We moved in recently in 2020. I know it's been sitting vacant, filled with mold for 10 years or so, you were saying?
At least.
At least, yeah. We're thrilled that a family's moved in and is willing to restore the home. It's been an eyesore in our block since we moved in. Honestly, you should probably let them build anything they want because it would be better than what's there now. I don't mean that literally, but that's about how it feels. The variance request is to build a deck where a deck already exists. It's up against a hillside, and while the distance to the property line is less than 20 feet, it's a vertical wall that goes over 20 feet to the property behind it. If you're thinking vertically, any meaningful impact on the property behind the house would be mitigated by this almost vertical rise in elevation behind the property. Behind it are two multifamilies, and to the left is the firehouse, which is obviously unoccupied. But we're very happy that something's being done about it. And I would love to talk to somebody at the board afterwards, not about this, but about something else.
So you in support?
Yes, that's in support, for sure.
Applicant should hire you for, to come and speak for them. Wow. Thank you. Okay. Any further questions to the applicant's representative from the board?
The only question I have is there anything that we have to worry about that it's been vacant for a long time, or no? Because we're not doing any use thing.
Yeah, we're already addressing that. I've been in contact with the owner of the property. They actually hired the firm to go ahead and evaluate the structure. They actually shored it up temporarily for now, so they're gonna go ahead, and part of the plans are to handle all the structural components that have been compromised, making it a viable structure for somebody to live in. So.
Very good, okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have no questions.
All right. With that, can I have a motion to close the public hearing on agenda item number 3?
So moved.
Motion by Stowe. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Elaine. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we will actually do a resolution tonight. How about that?
What do you know?
Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay, so we are going to go through and discuss the factors as we do. And so again, this is for a variance. Yeah, there we go. It is a request for an 11-foot 9-inch setback where the requirement is 20 feet. So the variance total is 8 feet 3 inches. And so as to whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by granting of the area variance. The board finds that.
It doesn't sound that way. It sounds like it has a, it's a pretty close, there's nothing in the back there that would, there's a steep embankment, as I understand.
It's not an undesirable change
Yeah,
to
right.
the neighborhood. I
No,
don't think.
thank
Not
you.
with a 20-foot dirt wall behind it.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think it will be a very desirable change to the neighborhood.
I agree, it's not undesirable.
Yeah, I don't think it impacts the neighborhood at all. All right, so that being said, as to whether the benefit the applicant seeks can be achieved through another method feasible for the applicant to pursue that does not require an area variance.
Yeah, they cannot put a deck.
Well,
No,
That's-
the
that-
whole
that's-
idea is building a deck.
But, you know, but it doesn't cause any detriment. So, but that's the answer, is that yes, is just not to put it there, but it doesn't cause any detriment, so I wouldn't think that that would be something that would be reasonable to require.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And it's the same footprint as the existing overhang.
Right.
Right.
I don't see it has any effect.
all right. As to whether the requested variance is substantial.
Not substantial.
I concur.
Yes,
Yeah,
not
no.
substantial.
I'll always note that mathematically it might be, but taken in context, it does not. As to whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
Absolutely not.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Yes.
Just
I mean, I agree. Sorry.
right. I concur with my fellow board members. And as to whether the alleged difficulty is self-created.
It is. Right?
They all are.
They all
They
are.
all are.
Somebody want to argue the other side? Elaine, you Montos?
It is self-created, not a concern.
I didn't,
Wouldn't
I'm
deny
on
it.
kind of, I mean, the whole thing was in such bad shape. None of that was self-created. On the other hand, they knew that when they bought it. So, yeah, self-created.
Yes. But it does not take away from all the other points that we raised.
That's right.
And then as to whether as to whether the requested variance is or is not the minimum variance necessary and adequate to preserve and protect the character of the neighborhood and the health, safety, and welfare of the community.
I think it is, I agree. It is the minimum.
Yes, I agree.
Agreed. Agreed.
All right. And so as I'm sure you heard before, as far as timing, so do you expect to be able to submit and then receive a building permit within 6 months, commence construction from the issuance of that building permit, and then complete construction within 24 months of the issuance of the building permit?
Yes.
And then other requirements are, of course, the applicant has to have all current fees paid. That's it, right?
I think she is all paid up. I think there was a water bill or something, she said, and took care of it.
Okay, very good. And so, with that, can I have a motion to approve or deny the variance?
Motion to approve
Second.
with all the stuff the chairman said.
All right, motion by Montos, second by Elaine, and I'll call the roll for fun. Elaine?
Aye.
Montos?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Stowe?
Yes.
And I am an aye. Go forth.
Thank you.
To love and serve the Lord.
Yes. If you so choose.
Yes. Can I have a motion to adjourn the August meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
A motion by Judy, second by Stowe. All in favor?
Aye.
And
Aye.
then the next meeting is September 17th at 7 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Um,